Welcome, Dr.
Sir,
Singh.
namaskar.
Well in time.
हेलो हेलो सर, कैसे हैं डॉक्टर साहब?
This is the meeting official.
Greetings from Indian Medical Association, Digital IMA. Welcome to our show, weekly webcast, every Thursday 3 to 4 p.m. with our digital partner, Librate, and webcast partner, IMATV. This webcast is available on our IMA website, as well as it will be available on imedinaccess.com live, which is a Facebook live platform. Librate is our digital partner in the means that IMA has tied up with Librate for supporting online clinics. All those people who wants to start their online clinic with established patients in established relationship, they can go to the website of librate.com/ they can open their account with their own name, for example, librate.com/trkk Agarwal, and they may be able to do an interaction with their patients. So every week we discuss with one subject with our experts. With me is Dr. R.N. Tandon, who is our Finance Secretary, and Dr. V.K. Monga, who is the Dean of IMA CGP. And our faculty today is Dr. Rajesh Sagar, who is a Professor of Psychiatry at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And I have Dr. Rajiv Seth, who is a Senior Consultant Developmental Pediatrician, very good, new term, Neonatology and Pediatric Pulmonology. And he is also, which group?
Child abuse group, Indian child abuse cancel group.
Cancel group. He is also the in that particular group. Both of them are experts in the field of child sexual abuse. And the topic for today is what 10 points every practitioner, IMA member in the country should know. This program is being brought to you by courtesy UNICEF, and our IMA representative to UNICEF, Hansa, is also here with us. So all of us will try to come out by the end of this 1 hour session. What are the 10 points which every doctor should know about child sexual abuse? Obviously, the first point which I will tell, and then I will start interacting with people, is the definition of a child. The definition of a child as far as child sexual abuse is concerned is 0 to 18 years. It's not 0 to 12 years. So everybody must know it is 0 to 18 years when it comes to, there are so many laws applicable to children. So one thing is very clear, 0 to 18 years. So everybody must know that child sexual abuse means 0 to 18 years. That's the definition of child with that. Rajeshji, when we talk about 0 to 18 years, is there any discrepancy? Why 18 years? Why not 16? What are different ages? What is the age for marriage?
Basically, again, because a lot of debate is there, like what should be the cutoff age for the children. Like say, for example, pediatrics, they see 12 or 14 years of age. But at least we all know that, you know, some of, at least from psychiatry perspective, we say that the children who are going to school going still children. So usually 12th class is the time when, you know, the 18 years is the time. So and some of the needs of these children less than 18 years are different as compared to adults. So
what is the age of marriage in India?
Age is marriage legally is
18 and 21. 18 and 21. And what about the age for sex, consensual sex?
That is a debatable. 16
No, now it's also
and 18.
No,
16
it is-
and 18 both.
Now it's also 18 basically because
18.
under the POCSO Act it's now 18 years, no consent.
So therefore the doctors must know it as 18. The age for consensual sex is also 18.
Yes.
That means any sexual act before the age of 18.
It's possible.
Also, it is important to remember, sir, that the UN Child Rights Convention, which India is signatory to, defines child as up to age 18. And all our Indian laws which have been formed are for children up less than 18 years. Now there are exceptions now in the Juvenile Justice Act. If a child commits heinous crimes like murder or rape, then they will be tried as adults. There's been a recent change in the juvenile justice, but whether you take a Juvenile Justice Act or any other child protection laws, including that one we discussed today, the POCSO Act, the child is defined as up to 18 years.
18. But in the Juvenile Justice Act, it is 16 to 18 as a.
Yeah, that's an exception.
Which has been modified recently, just
Yes.
modified.
So the first point everybody must know is the definition of child. Let's have a consensus. Let's forget about 16, 12, anything. Number is 18. And if you remember the word 18, that any child less than 18 years of age, this is what we are talking about, child sexual abuse. 2. When we say child sexual abuse, what's the definition?
So child sexual abuse is defined as a sexual activity with a child who is unable to understand this, is not able to give consent to, and also is not developmentally prepared for. And lastly, it violates the law of the land. So these components comprise the definition of child sexual abuse. And the new law which has come up, in 2012, which is the Protection of Children for Sexual Offences, has given a more broader coverage for all kinds of sexual offences, which would mean that not only penetrative but non-penetrative sexual activity, and also includes sexual harassment and child pornography. So it's a whole lot of, and physicians should be clear that the sexual violence is a huge big term which includes child sexual abuse. It also includes rape. It includes harassment, pornography. So it's a child violence, sexual violence against child is a whole big term, and child sexual abuse is a very specific term, which again I'll repeat for the physicians apart, that it occurs sexual activity in a child who's unable to understand, developmentally not ready, if he is not able to give consent, and it occurs in a relationship of trust and power. That's another thing that comes into, and which violates the law of the land. So this is the real definition for child sexual abuse.
So Rajesh, I want more clarification. So more simpler for my GP, because they won't go understand what sexual harassment is, they won't understand what sexual assault is. Let's see, for a GP, whatever Dr. Rajiv has said, if I have to remember it is one sentence, how do I define it? I'm talking about assault versus penetrative versus non-penetrative, harassment versus pornography.
Yeah, basically the point is that we need to understand that when we talk of sexual activity, we just think that it is a sexual penetrative act. So what the point is that with children, I think some of the activities which are, let's say, touch related, or that also comprises of the comes under sexual abuse, in that sense. So it is much broader in that sense. Any activity, sexual activity which has taken place, forget about penetrative, non-penetrative, or so just imagine that any activity related to sexual activity which is there for any personal sexual gratification or otherwise also will comprise of as a child sexual abuse. Now when we go into sub definition, then you can look into different parts of it, but any activity, sexual activity with a child, I think will comprise of that. And of course there are many such things, even touching or using child for some other sexual activity for gratification like masturbation and all. So that also looking at the child videos and in front of a child. That so there are a whole lot of things which are there, but in broader way, any activity related to sexual gratification presence of with child or in presence of child will comprise of this child sexual abuse.
Even exposure of sexual parts from adult to a child is also under child sexual abuse.
I will try to make it more simpler. Hence, I want to know whether we all agree or not. I understand it by way of 10 senses, 5 sensory, 5 motor. So smelling, okay, seeing, touching, tasting, or little less, hearing. Okay, so and 5 motor. Means handling and other things, speaking, seeing. So basically 5 senses. So anything which a male or a female child less than 18 years of age is not supposed to expose, those areas which is supposed to cover. So we all know whichever those areas which you are not supposed, if you don't cover them and go at the age of 16 outside, you will be called as that you are spreading obscenity. So those areas which you are supposed to cover, or with those areas you cover it in the public or in the swimming pool. Okay, so if you misbehave with those areas using these 5 senses, you talk about it, you hear about it, you touch about it, you smell those areas, you touch those areas. So whatever you do, you speak something wrong about those areas, whether same thing or on the web or on the mobile phone, anywhere, with whatever the means of communication is an offense. Is it simple?
Even signal.
Even
the signal.
You see, 5 senses. You are touching it. You are touching it. Touching will come penetrative, non-penetrative. The other way, whether you touch it, deep touch, superficial touch, you touch it. You hear about it. That means you are hearing or making somebody hear. Okay, you are seeing it or making somebody see.
Sure.
Okay, you are tasting it. All types of sexual offenses will come. You taste it or make somebody taste. You touch it or make somebody touch. Here will come all types of masturbations and all techniques will come. So these 5 senses, either you do it yourself or get it done by the child in those areas which are supposed to be covered.
Fine, I think you have covered.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm only trying to.
Dr. Agarwal, you can define the way you want to.
I'm only trying to say how to remember for people who are not CSA experts.
Sir, it's very simple. There are standard WHO definitions, there are standard UN definitions. We in India can coin our own definitions. But you know, and I think what you put it very rightly, you know, I think it's a very good that you have understood it so well, talking about senses and motor, but primarily what we need to do is any sexual activity with a child, okay, by which he cannot understand or developmentally not ready, it's child sexual abuse. If no consent is taken or that is child sexual abuse.
No,
so any violation.
All these 3 things get added there.
And also it's also violates the law of the land. Now we know that we have a law here in India, and I think there is no way that.
Okay. So we have defined it. Now the third thing which comes is the first is 0 to 18 years, and second is we must understand what child sexual abuse is. The third thing comes is, which every doctor must know, is it's a major public health problem and it's a medical legal emergency. Both of you, one medical legal emergency.
No, basically yes, because that is what we are discussing about this POXO Act. You know, that is, I think all doctors should know now this, that we do have this important act, that is Protection of Child Sexual Offence Act, that is 2012, and we have discussed what it contains. You know, already we have talked about sexual assault, 2 types: penetrative, non-penetrative, sexual harassment, and pornography. And in fact, the most important thing in this for any doctor is that mandatory reporting is there. And
before mandatory reporting, that's my 4th point.
Okay.
I'm saying it's an emergency. Emergency means no delay.
Yeah.
When I say emergency means no delay.
Yeah. So
that means you have to do it there and then. You can't say come back after 2 hours.
Yeah, it has to be handled there itself. And in fact, if I can put across that there is a High Court order that all the casualty medical emergencies should be equipped with a room where such examination can be done. A doctor has to be trained. In fact, there are 7 points are there which has been highlighted, and perhaps I understand that most of the hospitals are not aware of it, but one can look at these, and this is a very, very important point. That every hospital where the casualty services are there, they have to gear themselves up to handle these children at their own level, and no hospital can refuse that. And as far as the major public health problem,
okay. Well, in the medical legal emergency, it is medico-legal, so therefore reporting will come back, police information will come back, and third, it's an emergency, no delay. You cannot refuse, and when it is an emergency means that your hospital emergency department has to be equipped And because today, under the law, it is not necessary that it is only going to be the government, even the private sector can come. So every hospital cannot say that we are not equipped with that. We'll come back to that when we come back to the medical examination. But what about a public health program? It is a public health, major public health problem.
Absolutely, it's a major public health problem because there are studies, right? 2007, the Government of India study, which shows that about more than 50% of children have had exposure and abused. The prevalence of abuse as high as 50%. There are international data as well, which says different countries have different data.
In India, we're talking.
So it's obviously it is. You see, the problem is that our doctors are not trained in this field, and the need of the hour is more training, more information on doctors. The doctors need to realize this is a health problem. Gender-based violence, child sexual abuse is a health problem, and so that is what it is. That
So let's define 50%. We agree.
Yeah,
We need to have a
because
number.
basically,
Because
no,
it is a
just
study.
no.
It is a study.
I want no. I
Even
want
the-
no,
let's
study
talk
is for-
about. We are coming out with a number which
No,
every
no,
doctor
I
should
will-
speak. Nobody should speak different numbers. What number
Sure.
IMA proposes?
No, but what I will say, no, this study which was by Ministry of Women and Child, that was 50%, but there are other meta-analysis which
What
says
is the
that
number
India,
which we say?
20% is in world, but India, some of the studies which have been done, they come close to about 12% or so. So again, the numbers are vary. One can
No,
say
yeah,
for
to
12
say-
to
if I say
50%.
if I include it in the point that everybody should know, then I need to define a number certified by IMA, and that cannot change. Because if IMA certifies it, what that number, then every doctor is supposed to speak that number.
Yeah, but
You
we
as
say-
you as an expert can speak out different studies. But for
Yeah.
me, for a GP, I can't confuse him. I have to give him a number, or I just don't give him a number. Or I say up to.
Yeah, one can say up to 50%, but there are what is important to know that there are different studies out there which have been done different. So one can
But
say
most of them are
10,
good
50%,
unreported also.
50% or
Most
so.
of the things
Yeah,
are going unreported.
So
But
50,
basically,
so let me say 50 to 50% depending upon different studies.
Yeah.
Up
There's
to-
there is
so-
one
up to
very
50%.
big difference. National Family Health Service says it is only 9 to 14%
Yeah.
have been reported in 2005. This is the last third. So suddenly from 15 to 50% is quite a big number. 50% and 52% has come after certain surveys, where the 52% of male child has been abused and 48% of female child has been abused. Those are the small surveys which have been done. But as far as the national number is there,
Dr.
it's
Brandon,
not-
let's
Study on
try to
general
understand.
abuse
We
and
are going
neglect
to,
as well. So when you
so
say
we are going to
50%
GPs.
is all
Yeah.
We are going to GPs. I don't want to confuse them with studies. I want to give them a number. I said the
Sir,
number may be
sir,
as
please
low
follow.
as 15% and as high as 50% depending upon various
Right.
segments of the society.
Right,
Right.
right.
In
That's
general-
all. That's all.
In
So
general,
that's how-
what you can say, what you can say, 1 in 10 in boys and 1 in 5 in girls. I think
So
there
1
are
in
some
10 in boys
This
One
is
in
the
five.
UNICEF figures.
and 1 in
1 in 5 in girls.
Five
I
in-
think that is what number you can say.
So this is
much
a-
simpler.
much simpler.
So you can use that term. But on top of it, why major public health problem? Because if you see the
That's okay.
NCRB
Anything-
data,
anything,
just want to-
anything more than 1% is a major public
Yeah,
health problem.
that is,
For me,
uh,
more than 1%. See, for me, anything more than 1% is a major public health problem. That's my definition of public health
True.
problem.
On top of it, I think if I can just add here that these data is collected by NCRB. If you see 2002, the data was 6,000 were affected, and now 2012 there are 40,000. So see the number which has increased. So it is
More
not
reporting.
only
More
so
reporting.
it is escalating. The numbers are increasing. When we
So
see
let's say,
comparing last
it's a
year.
major public health problem with 1 in 10 of boys and 1 in 5 of girls. That's good. We come back now to is that it requires, being a medico-legal case, it requires mandatory reporting. Mandatory reporting means in a hospital, in a clinic. If I'm called to see a patient at home, I go for a house visit. Am I supposed to report? Number one. Number two is also even for a suspect case. That means even if there is a differential diagnosis, I need to report. So what is my duty as a GP? That I suspect or I diagnose or I am being reported in my clinic or in a house call or in a hospital ER department. These are the only 3 places a patient will go.
Right.
What does in all 3 situations mandatory reporting means?
Sir, as per the POCSO Act, the Protection of Children of Sexual Offences, mandatory reporting would mean that any registered medical practitioner, you do not even have to be a super specialist or anything, any registered medical practitioner who comes across or suspects, he or she needs to report this. And this reporting has to be done to the police, the nearest police station, and this is what doctors are supposed to do. They don't need to investigate it like but they need to report. Failure of reporting would mean a doctor can be penalized if by imprisonment up to 6 months or a fine up to ₹20,000.
So let me define. So the law is, whichever law is applicable, the law is that if I suspect a child sexual abuse, or if I diagnose a child sexual abuse, I must call 100.
Yes, you could.
So
Just
easier.
It's
easier.
There are two other also. Like
Yeah.
one is that what was SJPU, that is Special Juvenile Police Unit. That is as per the what we have the provision as per the Women and Child department. And another one is Childline Helpline number 1098. You can call there also.
Yeah.
So so it's not only if one can. Of course, police is one, but there are two other.
No.
All three or any of these?
Any of these.
No. If I call 1098, I don't have to call the police.
No, because Childline will call the police. So it's actually easier to call 1098 because they assist with the police.
Yeah.
It's a government appointed NGO which looks after children in need.
Pan India.
Pan
Pan
India.
India,
Pan
mercy.
India.
It's
I think it's
present in
305
about
districts.
300 cities. Childline is a public private partnership model, and the telephone number is 1098. If a doctor is scared and doesn't want to report it to the police, they need to report to the Childline, because Childline then will report to the police.
It is their response. So basically 1098 is a number every doctor should know if any
See,
such.
as on today, to create awareness at the national level that every doctor must know 1098 will take time. But they can also call 100.
Oh yeah, they can.
Okay, so they
That's
can.
fine.
So 1098 is a number, or they can call because this special juvenile police unit, even I am not aware.
No, that is something that the police station will
That
take
the
care
police
of.
station will take care of.
If doctors start looking for juvenile police, they won't find any.
Yeah.
That's
Normally, the
hardly.
police station, if they have a SJPU
As per
unit,
the law.
then
So
they
they are
send the
supposed to
complaint
inform the
NGO.
police whichever they want,
Yeah.
or they can call 109.
Yeah,
Yeah.
SJPU is just a department
Okay.
within the police, so that is for the
So
police.
now the
to
next
do
thing which
themselves.
comes is every doctor must know: A, he cannot refuse treatment; B, there is a mandatory free treatment. He cannot charge. No police permission is required. No
Free.
court permission is required, and later on, under the POCSO Act, he can ask the special court to reimburse for his charges. And we have? These are the points we need to discuss. When we say mandatory free treatment, what does free means? What does treatment means?
See, as far
Again, I'm divided into three.
Sir.
In my clinic, a patient's house versus a hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing for doctors to understand is that the child sexual abuse is a medical emergency if they are able to pick it up. And this is extremely important medical legally, like you rightly said, that if a child comes, they need to, they themselves need to provide urgent, emergent care. Save the child's life if the child is bleeding. Generally what happens, and I think doctors should know, in about only 2 to 4% of child sexual abuse victims, they get physical injuries to an extent that they will be bleeding or they will have an emergency to an extent. 95% of the cases of medical examination is absolutely normal. But what, as the rule 5 of the POCSO, it's extremely important that the doctors provide the urgent care. Okay, now urgent care includes a set of things, which we are doing it in so many other areas, but we feel uncomfortable when we are dealing with a child with sexual abuse. And what we need to do is to make sure the child is safe. If he doesn't have, his vitals are stable, his pulse is all right, the routine examination needs to be done, see for signs of injuries elsewhere in the body as well. Look at now the other issue is the consent part, doctor. And it's extremely important if the child is below 12 years, you need to involve their adults and the providers and take their consent. And if the child is over 12 years, well, the child can give the consent, him or herself. So that is extremely important. And looking at the basics examination, and then coming to specific genital examination. And general examination could be just observation, and it's a very simple, there is a checklist available, you could download, there's a guidance of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which each and every registered practitioners need to know. There's an algorithm there, what you need to do, and it's a very simple guideline. I'm sure in the times to come, this can be done by any registered medical practitioner, because the exam for child sexual abuse is simple, but the more difficult part comes is the forensic assessment, sir. And that is a challenge, when you need to have forensic, and therefore we need to have linkages with specialist forensic teams available in the neighborhood to carry it out.
No, I want to be more simpler. Say for example, I am sitting at my clinic,
Yeah.
and the child is brought to me. I am a cardiologist. I have nothing to do with general practice. Okay.
Then he
So
won't be
therefore-
brought to you.
No,
because-
it can be. It can be. It has happened on my neighbor. It can
Okay.
happen. They have
Okay.
called me up. It has happened on my first floor. They called me up.
Okay, any doctor.
Any doctor can be called up. So
Right.
therefore, if it is a mandatory treatment by me, it may not be possible. I am not supposed to download the form there and checklist and do that. I may not have a kit. So therefore, my job is to inform the police. What next? Should I refer him to the nearest hospital? What next? I need to know, because otherwise what will happen is all of us will get confused. Because when you say I'm also an MBBS, all medical practitioners, so if a patient comes to me, I inform 1098, okay?
Yeah.
And then what next? Should I send him to a hospital? Is by simply putting a referral to the hospital is sufficient? They may not go. No, but that's one. Two, they come back and say, हमें आपसे इलाज नहीं कराना, आप पुलिस में केस कर दोगे. We want to go back. What's my duty?
See, these are very complex
solutions,
situations,
yeah.
and you need to understand that there are certain guidelines, and each and every case might be different. But essentially, if you are a super specialist, your child comes to you, you can at least make sure that the child is safe. Okay, there's both physical, mental,
Vitals we
other
have seen,
injuries.
safety we have seen.
Those things you can do.
Consent we
okay?
have taken.
You take the consent. Okay, you do a general physical examination. Okay, you could do a general examination as well, which
Okay,
would be a
my
cursory-
next question is, the
Yeah.
child is 11 years and the parent says no. Then what?
If the parents, they have a right to refuse. If the parents refuse the examination, you cannot proceed. You
Then, but I just inform 1098 and
you
go out.
inform 1098 or your 100 number, because many cities may not have 1098. Then you inform the police, and the police will do their needful job.
My job is over.
Yes, your job is open. If they are refusing, you document that. The main important thing, what I personally see, the doctors need to document these cases in their letterhead. Even if you are a cardiologist, whatever you have done, sir, you must document, because
No, again, I'm confused.
it's extremely
Most
important.
of us,
Yes.
most of us,
Yes, sir.
in our letterhead, we
Yeah.
give the letterhead to the patient. We don't keep.
Well, in this
In these cases, I'm supposed to keep.
I
You have
think you
to
should
keep a
keep a
record
copy.
of
That
You
means,
need to have a copy.
that means every doctor must keep a photocopier.
Well, you could have a photocopier, or today WhatsApp, you can do a WhatsApp, you can have, everybody has a mobile phone, you just
But-
take a copy from the WhatsApp. And
No,
keep it
WhatsApp
with
I
you.
cannot keep. Absolutely no. I mean, I will say WhatsApp is a crime. Putting anything on a WhatsApp gets leaked. So that's a crime. So I can only keep it in my photography.
You
No,
can
but in
just
this
take a
case,
photo.
it's not a prescription, so it's just a record for the doctor to
It's
say
just
that
for your
there is an
personal
informed
information,
refusal,
sir.
that's
You
all.
cannot share it with others. You
They
have
don't
to-
even have to
WhatsApp
share
is-
with the
So
patient.
what shall we do? What he's
WhatsApp
writing
will
in
be always
WhatsApp
members,
is
no?
public domain. What he's writing
WhatsApp
in
is always
WhatsApp
in
can
public.
be-
There will be more than one member.
Camera. You say on your mobile.
He
Mobile
wanted
camera.
to just convey that you take a photograph with your mobile camera. Not put it on
Yeah.
WhatsApp, but take a photograph
Okay,
and keep it in your.
yeah, I think that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Take a photograph with your mobile.
Right.
Okay, that's what, I mean, if you don't have a copy machine, then at least you take a
For
photo.
it.
You know,
But it's all evidentiary in the end. If it
See
goes
the-
to court, then it
Or a
becomes
carbon
evidentiary.
papers.
yes. And the other issue, sir, what happens is that you know the documentation. The most of the times when eventually these children have to get justice, and most of the time the perpetrators get free of and discharged without any punishment, because the doctors have not kept the records. Like I mentioned to you, that 95% of the sexual examinations will be absolutely normal, so you don't need to be scared. And you can certainly, if you are a cardiologist, you can even call your gynae colleagues, you can call other people who are experts in the field, when you could jointly handle this if you are so uncomfortable. But I think you are legally today liable to do the examination. That is what the POXO
Okay,
says.
so let's come back to the next mandatory reporting even for suspect differential diagnosis. The mandatory free treatment, no police, no court required. Now the consent. Okay, so in consent we are talking about two: informed refusal and informed consent. Just elaborate.
No, basically, consent means again what we have discussed is less than 12 years of age.
No, what does consent?
Yeah.
When I say informed consent means in writing.
Yeah, in writing.
What should I do? And who
In
signs
writing,
it?
The person who is giving the consent signs it, and if there is a neutral person, that is always good to document it.
No, if the parent, you say that in less than 12 years of age, the parent has to sign.
Parent
is
or
not
caregiver
available.
or whoever.
Parent is not available. No, because MCI Act doesn't talk about caregiver. MCI Act doesn't talk about third parties. The MCI Act very clearly talks about it, parents or the guardian. So
Yeah,
in the
guardian, yeah.
in the guardian.
Guardian.
If I put down the guardian, then who defines what the guardian is?
In the
How
POXO
do I
Act,
know that?
there's a definition.
Also adds the different.
Person in whom the child has trust and confidence.
Trust.
So it could be like an uncle, an aunt that the child has been living with. The child doesn't have parents, and the aunt is like the primary
No,
caregiver.
no, my kind of parents are not available.
Huh.
I'm not
Parents
talking
are not available also, but the child, the aunt is the one who discovers it and takes the child. It's a person in whom the child says he has trust and
Yeah.
confidence. POXO Act says person in whom the child has trust and
That
confidence.
is the definition of the guardian.
Parents or the another person in whom the child has trust and confidence. Doesn't even have to be a relative.
And consent can be because these are, suppose it comes to the hospital, there is a consent form. It comes to a GP in his clinic, there is no consent form because we don't handle such cases in a GP. There are no consent forms available. It can be simple writing on a letterhead.
Sir, like I said, that I think in today's day and age, all our doctors, and I think IMA can play a very important role in getting the Ministry of Health guidelines. We can be put on our website as well. There's a simple consent form.
Rajeev, my GP, there are 100 laws. If I am supposed to tell him he is going to see one case in a 5 years, and you keep down the board, everything together, then tomorrow NTP will come back and say, remember this, Drug Psychotic Act will come back and say, you do this, everyone. So it will not be possible. So answer is, he should be aware of minimum things. And if he is coming across these cases once in a blue moon, then he must know the minimum point and refer. So he must know where to refer. So my question was, when I refer a child to the nearest hospital, and if they don't go to that hospital, am I liable?
No, you're not.
So-
You're not. So long you have done your duty as a doctor, you have provided them medical care, you have informed the police, and then you are safe.
Made a referral, that's all.
You just need to refer them to a higher facility if the child needs. If they don't go,
So
it's not
when
your
we
problem.
talk
I just
about
want to add one point here, because since you are discussing about the consent thing, because since at the top you have said it's a medico-legal problem, so obviously it has to be viewed differently. It cannot be compared with other problems. So when you are saying it's a medico-legal problem, then consent is an inherent part of that. So you can't avoid that. And if you say that your GPs cannot do it, I think they will have to do it, since already you have mentioned it's a medico-legal problem. The other thing I want to highlight here, like at AIIMS, if they go to any hospital, so doctor accompany them, there is a vehicle which brings them to AIIMS. So there is a provision there. So if it is in a hospital, let's say they go to a nearer hospital like secondary care hospital, where they go and they have to refer to the higher center. So there is a vehicle in the hospital which a doctor also accompany and brings to the higher center. So that's what the protocol is like, for any patient who has to be referred to higher center.
What about the GP?
There is,
GPs
they have
vehicle?
to, GPs, I think what has been said.
The
because
owner
under
should be
limitation.
the policeman
No.
to take the child to
Yeah,
her.
so I
Exactly,
think,
exactly.
so it is
In this scenario, the most important role police has to play, because police has to take the child for the treatment at the higher center. Police has to provide protection. Police has to provide security to the child, and even stay and food, everything police is supposed to provide, and then inform to the
Now, again,
next committee who is going to take action.
And again comes as, I am a male doctor, the child comes to me. Okay, now there are different acts. Okay, I'm supposed to, one of the acts says lady has to examine lady doctor.
I can clarify that.
And then Ministry of Health says, no, if lady doctor is not available, then anybody can do.
Right, sir. Sir,
Okay, so therefore I must then put it down as that.
Sir, a female patient has to be examined by a female doctor as per the POXO Act. But if after due search, if you don't find a female doctor, then any male doctor can examine. But you should have a female chaperone with you.
So that is anyway.
That's
That's the
important.
That's the rule for
Well, in this, the POCSO Act due search word is a very
Yeah.
I think it's
important.
just everything
Due
should be
search.
documented.
Basically,
I mean,
it has to
You
be
have-
documented.
it has to be
Like, you look
documented.
for
You
it,
have to document.
yeah, look for it,
And
and
you have
it was
tried
not
to
there.
find
So
out
you
if
have
you
to
don't
Right.
but
document
you
it.
train.
Also, consent has to be, the way consent is documented, consent can also be taken for examination by a male doctor, and that can be documented.
Right.
And you can, it's informed consent, so that involves explaining to the child or the parents, whoever is giving consent, that there is no female doctor available. Are you comfortable with going forward with a male doctor, or would you like to wait for me to find a female doctor or refer you, and that might take 2 days in a remote part of like the country. And if they say no, we would like to go ahead with a male doctor, and that is documented, then it won't be a violation of the act. It should
Exactly.
be fine.
Okay, when we say sexual, the abuser is usually a known person. That's redefined. Let's be a little bit more defined.
Sir, yeah, most of the sexual abuse takes place in settings on home under secrecy. And although it can occur in any setting, it can occur in institutions, schools, everywhere. But the majority of the children are abused by someone whom they already know, whom they trust. And there's a process these perpetrators of these crimes do, that's called a process called grooming. And I think doctors need to know that they groom the child gradually, that they build their trust, they come to the child, they show interest in the child, and probably get a candy or a chocolate for the child, show love and affection. And when the mother or father is not able to take, they say, okay, I can take them for a play or a ride or to the zoo or wherever, and they show untoward interest, and gradually after building the relationship, they find a secret place where they indulge in these sexual activities. In the process of grooming, in the next step, they would also now gradually kind of threaten the child, tell the child not to reveal these secrets. You know, the entire process of grooming is, the whole idea is to groom the child in such a way that the child is able to maintain that as a secret act between the perpetrator of the crime and his child. And we need to know that, because when you interview and take history taking of these children, you know, there's one paper in pediatrics in US which says, I can tell you because you are a doctor. Doctor means D-O-C-T-O-R in capital. The children who are abused, they will trust you because you are a doctor, and they will reveal to you. But the way you interview and the way you take history from the child is extremely important. It has to be absolutely non-judgmental. You need to make them relax, not making it a trial kind of an experience for the child, and be a patient listener. And when the child says something, you just ask him to what more or reveal and support him, and don't show shock feelings, don't show total stress feelings. So there is, you know, pediatricians were very comfortable with dealing with children, but I'm telling you, our registered medical practitioners in this country are dealing with about 30 to 40% of children. At least 40% of the immunizations are done by registered medical practitioners in this country. I don't think, sir, that in our country doctors would have a problem in dealing with the child. But what I personally feel in my practice, it's the time. You know, our doctors are extremely busy in a busy office setup where there are 80 to 90 patients they have to see in the whole day. They will not be able to provide that secrecy, privacy, a separate room, and therefore it becomes extremely difficult. And also a doctor may not be able to give multidisciplinary services, you know, because you need social worker, you need person mental health. Therefore, it is always nice that this child is actually really rushed into a major hospital where the multidisciplinary team and setup is available. But we are still building those setups of child protection units in our country. India is in the process of developing one-stop crisis centers. We are in the process of making child response units. 4 hospitals in Bangalore have already set it up. A proposal has gone to the Delhi government, and with the help of IMA, I'm sure we can have many more centers of excellence where the children get their due in a multidisciplinary fashion.
I think that as far as what you said, that by the known person, obviously, as per the study also as mentioned, of the study by the women child, 72% were the known people. Now, one of the major thing also, if you see from the child perspective, we always are being taught the way that, we should always respect our elders, we should always listen to them, that is how our, kind of a teaching comes. And that's the crux of it, even because of course we discuss about grooming, but the way they have been brought up, that we should not complain against our elders, so that also
Cultural
comes in
factors,
the way,
sure.
that also comes in the way.
Good point.
And that's how the child,
Yes.
that's how when we talk about disclosure, that's how the child doesn't disclose. Only 2 to 3% of these cases are disclosed, and that we need, and also a child think that I will be blamed for it. Not an adult will be blamed, because that means. In the family, they will say that that a child, that means something you have done wrong. तुमने कुछ गलत किया होगा, and so that is why if you see all these factors, perhaps looking to the known person are the one who can make a direct entry into the whole process, and they are the one who will be difficult to catch hold of it, and the whole process. In fact, what we need to understand is sometimes the process goes on also. It's not one-time process. So sometimes it goes on, and that's the reason, because they are more amenable, they are more approachable, and no one can look at them, no one can complain about them. So that's the reason, that's how they continue to have the abuse and the victimization.
Reporting. When can you report? Suppose a girl comes back and says, I was abused 6 months back.
You will report when the child comes to you.
No,
When it comes, yes.
The law is even the reporting of 2 years back, 4 years back, 5 years back.
Oh, absolutely. It can go for as number of years. There's no end to point. There a child who's been, who has had sexual abuse when he was 2, and then the child.
So I'm
any
like,
age.
if there is any past history of sexual abuse,
Right.
it becomes reporting.
Yes.
Yeah, but the only thing is, criminal laws in India under the constitution don't have retrospective
No
effect.
criminal law can tell me really.
No, if the abuse happened before the law came into force,
Oh yes, obviously, but then the IPC is there.
can't.
IPC is there.
no, and nothing
There
has
was a law.
retrospective effect. Like if no, basically, yeah. So it can be like, but a boy is not covered under IPC, for example. So if a boy who's now 20 years old comes and says to you that I was abused when I was 8 years old, so 12 years ago, that would not be covered under any law, and that's a problem. It's a problem. It's a gap in the law, but that is the way. It doesn't have retrospective effect. But if there is a boy who's now 16 years old and he comes and says to you, I started being abused when I was 5 years old, and it's been carrying on for these 13 years, then that is still covered. So criminally, only the abuse that he suffered since 2012 is covered under POCSO. But the fact is that POCSO also has a section on like long-term abuse, for example, so it would get covered under that. But an isolated incident that occurred before 14th November 2012 is not covered, unfortunately.
So let us say it is covered. Because that will.
It won't be possible.
As and when the patient
Can't be,
comes
it's
to-
against
No.
the law.
My question is that I must tell the doctor that if the patient says I was in my job. So on the police. Let the police decide whether it is
Yeah,
covered.
of course.
As
The
a-
law doesn't apply, that's all.
No.
There's no reason why
if
the
I have to
patient
go in
should not
every
be
merit of the
examined.
case,
Yeah.
better to do.
Yeah, there's no reason why the patient should not inform the doctor.
Then come back to an important aspect, delayed effects. I want to spend time. What do you mean by delayed effects? How do you suspect? How do I suspect 5 years back this may be a case of?
So
What are the delayed effects?
basically, I can talk about what are the effects, psychological effect it
Yes,
has.
we can.
It has now I can tell you 2 ways to assess them. One is that people who come when they are adults, like those who have multiple somatic complaints. If I can define that, somatic complaints mean those who complain of headache, body aches, where all the tests has been done, all are normal. So all these when they have, and it has been found that those who have these type of problem in their childhood, they have suffered some kind of trauma, and one of them important is child sexual abuse. So what I'm trying to say is those who are adults who have multiple psychiatric problems, more so somatic complaints, even those who have anxiety, and so they can have the problem. Other ones are those people have followed up, those who have suffered who are victims of child sexual abuse. When we follow them up, they tend to develop multiple behavioral problems. Now we can describe in different ways. One can say that one which amounts to the disorder level. What I can say, one of the important PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So one should know about it in the sense that people because it's so traumatic, even what happens, they will remember about it. In the night, they will have dreams about it. They will relive the thing. They have autonomic symptom, anxiety, depression, and so on. So that is what is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Some will go to depression, some will go to anxiety disorder. Now the point is that not all will go to threshold of disorder, but they will have number of behavioral problems. Now this would be like say for anger, aggression, acting out behavior, acting in behavior, suicidal threats, suicidal attempts, suicidal thoughts, then even sexualized behavior. They may have problems in the relationship, interpersonal problem. A child may have a problem in academic difficulties, problem in concentration, problem so there may be academic difficulties. There may be interpersonal difficulties, not able to having a relationship with any person. They will always doubt the person, because they have suffered this event in their childhood. So whole lot of interpersonal difficulties will be there. Then there are even substance use. Person will go on to alcohol, drugs, and so on. And there is a good evidence that they may have a substance use disorder later on in their life.
Right.
They may have a psychosexual disorders also. So whole gamut of psychiatric disturbances can be there. Now it can be assessed. Those who have a problem, when we follow them up over a period of time, some are immediate and some are delayed, or say some will come later on. And even in the adults, that's why. So some of the they may reveal that I suffered this in my childhood. So that also has the impact. So and there are good. Let me again clarify. There is something known as adverse childhood experiences. A
Right.
study which we need to know. There's a very very important study where adverse childhood experiences mean anything we suffered in the childhood, like trauma. Now trauma could be physical or sexual. More important, sexual. It can have a psychiatric symptom, but also physical also. There is a good evidence that a lot of medical conditions like cardiac illnesses there is also link with that. So it is not only the psychiatric but also physical illness. So any child who had gone through the trauma had gone through sexual trauma
So suppose
can have a physical as well as psychiatric symptom.
now, all these things, are they controllable or preventable with counseling, CBT?
Yes, I think that's I think if we are talking about prevention, then first I think we should talk about how to prevent the child sexual abuse itself. Now we should know what is a good touch, bad touch, and there is a good kind of CDs are available like it is there with DCPCR, Delhi Commission of Protection of Child Rights. There is a good document of DC 170-page document. They have come with the prevention of child abuse guideline, which we are part of it, and that's and there is a whole section on. There are 18 chapters are there. It talks about different aspects like even cyber aspects, transport, how to do recruitment at school level, about the recreational activity, when to go out for picnic, what to do. So a whole lot of things are there. Plus there is also post-abuse occurrence. So these points are covered at least in. We can say out of India, Delhi is the one we do have this by Delhi Commission of Protection of Child Rights, DCPCR. These are the Prevention of Child Abuse guidelines.
Is it available on the website?
It is available on the website. It is available. We have gone through. Now the thing is that first we should see that we should teach a child. Like that is why the interaction of parent and child is very important. They should be open. They should talk to a child. So they should teach the child that okay, this is good touch, bad touch. So one should see how we can prevent the child.
Again, can I define what is good touch,
Sir,
bad touch, or
I
simplicity?
wanted to talk about this. Is very well said by him, but the good touch and bad touch are not the current terms that are used by child sexual abuse experts worldwide. The person who's done extensive research on this is Martin Finkel from USA, is my mentor, and he defines as okay and not okay touch. Okay, and let me tell you, and doctors need to know regarding prevention. If they can just prevent, it will be wonderful. We could save so many children potentially getting abused. A child is developmentally ready after the age of 3 years, okay, to understand what are private parts, and these private parts, it's not okay for anybody except mama and dadi to touch, or if anybody touches those parts, they should not keep a secret and tell two adults right away. So these are simple things that can be taught and inculcated, and I do it in my practice as a pediatrician right from age 3 years, and I keep telling, and I'm seeing a lot of sea changes in my parents and the behavior, and they do respect me for touching these areas during my general, and the best time to talk about these is when somebody comes for a physical examination or vaccination, and pediatricians and registered medical practitioners get so many opportunities. So these are very, very important things that we can do to prevent child sexual abuse.
Basically, again, the most important thing is from psychological perspective, the communication open between child and the parent. I think what all child does, should report to the, the parent, mother or father, so that way if the channel is open, then even anything is happening, like say for example we're discussing about grooming part, even if that is revealed earlier, then it is possible that we may prevent the child sexual abuse.
Right.
So if a child, because that confidence child has to get to reveal all the things which are happening, and that way, so sometimes we as a parent are to be blamed that we close the channel of communication. We need to communicate with
No,
the
I'll
child.
go the other way around. So I've gone through so many pediatricians. I'm yet to see a poster of their clinic.
I have
It is in my
Okay.
room,
No,
there is a
no,
poster.
I said, I said I've gone through, when I say you are doing it, you're a specialist. Okay, you are in this field. Okay. But then you won't have a cardiology poster there.
No,
Okay.
that's good. That's good.
You won't have a rheumatic heart disease poster there, which is also required.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, why can't the IMA, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and Indian Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, 12 to 18. So 12 to 18 is common, both of them are same. Let us come out with a poster which talks about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points on child sexual abuse, and give it an appeal that one poster should be there. And this poster should not only be there on the clinic, but in every school.
Yes.
Every school, this poster should be made mandatory.
Teachers should.
Why should I have to spend, because making an effort, going to the school and taking classes versus, why POXO has not thought of, when you are making an act, why they have not simpler thing,
Absolutely,
that it
sir.
is mandatory for a school to have a standard poster
Right.
in every school, so that the child has he has an enthusiasm, he comes back and says, what is this?
Yes.
Because sexual
But
education
there's
is a
a
big
news
problem in our
report,
country.
yeah.
And that itself is.
No, I'm not talking about
People
sex
are happy to
education.
talk about heart
I am
disease,
not-
but they're not happy to talk
No,
about
sir,
sexual
I am not
education.
talking about sex education. I am only talking about the POXO Act.
No,
Under
but
the POXO Act,
it goes to the
Right.
most fundamental. It's
But
a very
no-
uncomfortable topic, basically.
no,
and that's
therefore
why
I'm
we're not able
saying,
to
therefore
talk
I'm
about
saying,
it.
it's a poster.
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
even
what
putting,
we're
poster is something where you are not talking about it.
Right.
You are saying ki this is, it is illegal or unlawful to touch the private areas.
Yeah.
At private parts, I may not even mention about the word sex. Sexual parts, sexuality, private parts. If
Some
this can
schools have
come out,
started doing it now.
No, that's a
No.
good
On
point.
their
Mandatory.
own,
Mandatory.
but not mandatory.
No,
I'm talking about mandatory, where even then, Psychiatrist Association,
Yeah,
Indian
I
Academy
think-
of Psychiatry, these 4 organizations can work together, come out with a joint poster, then we can even go to the Supreme Court
Right.
and go back to a PIL that this poster should be in every school as a mandatory
Right,
under the
right.
POXO Act.
That's a great
Yes.
point. Let me just add here that I was talking about the DCPCR guidelines. In fact, one chapter is on this. In fact, not only this, also this 1098 should be displayed in all the school buses.
Same poster,
and in-
same poster.
Yeah, 1098 number, not only school buses but also school premises. It is there, but it has to be implemented.
It has to be
In fact, it is
implemented.
there. It is
No,
mentioned.
you're talking
but
about
it's
Delhi,
not-
I'm talking about India.
Right.
No, no, yeah.
Sir,
I'm
sir,
talking about-
Indian
It should
Medical
be there, it should be
Association is the overarching association. It can play an extremely
I'm-
important
I'm-
role.
I'm-
And sir, what you're saying is absolutely right.
It should
And
be
and we also, like we have discussed earlier, that we need to influence the Medical Council of India to make this child rights and protection training as part of essential medical curriculum for medical students. People who graduate never take child sexual abuse as a health subject. This is a health problem, and period. And we need to know this is a new disease, this has new strategies, and we need to do that.
No,
No.
I am, but I'm emphasizing again, I need, who is the president of Indian Psychiatric
So, sir,
Association?
he's,
Let's
yeah.
initiate that. I will
We
call-
can initiate. He's
let's-
interested in this area. so-
Let's talk to all 5 people, we will call the MCI people also, let's make it as a part.
It's doable.
If we
I
can,
think,
it's
yeah.
doable, if you can come out with a poster, with this poster we can write to the ministry to make it mandatory.
So I'm the chair of the Child Abuse Group, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and we will strongly support you in this.
Okay, so,
So we also from psychiatry.
so psychiatry is
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
Indian Academy of Pediatrics is done, then API I will talk to the president, and then what else is left?
Yeah,
IMA I am there.
IMA is done.
IMA I am there.
The gynecologist will do, and
Gynecologists
forensic.
are, yes, they are hydro handling, Foxy we can
Forensic
call,
will come.
Alka will call,
Forensic
Alka will call.
Well,
Yeah.
No, but we are not defied. France is not defied.
UNICEF is there.
Huh?
UNICEF is
UNICEF
there.
is
UNICEF
there.
is there, of course.
In any way, so we call up these 4 major organizations. You can come out with some sentences and a poster. Okay, then we give it to the government. Let the government decide whether they want to modify or not. And then if the government doesn't listen to us, we go to the Supreme Court and say this is mandatory. This is the problem we are facing.
Right.
So whether
Because this is how, one way of preventing, if we can prevent
There's
it,
also a movie made of this, and when we met Menka Gandhi, our Minister of Women and Child, she said there's a movie, and this movie, I have that movie with me.
What is the name?
I'm just forgetting the name of the movie, but it is a movie made by Childline India, and it is an award-winning movie, which shows the child sexual abuse and the reference to 1098. So if that movie can be shown in schools,
No, I won't.
there's a
No, 4 organizations are talking about showing somebody else's movie. Let's make our own.
yeah.
I mean, 4 major organizations are sitting together and they are saying we'll promote somebody else. Let's make our own group.
Fine.
4 of us. Let 4 organizations create
Yes.
create an activist group.
Okay.
And we create our own movie.
All right.
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, that's-
I think
series
that
are also
movie is
generated.
as we can make a better movie. Than
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
We can do a better job.
See.
I'm sure.
So these 4 organizations, IMA, Pediatrics, Gynae, Psychiatry. 4 organizations are major
Oh,
organizations.
absolutely, sir.
Okay. If we sit together and create so IMA, Pediatrics, Gynae, and Psychiatry. So create something, IPGP, something create. We create some, and we meet and we start working on it.
Sure, sir.
This is something.
It is something which is doable, can be done with less resources. I think it is something a starting point and can be a stepping stone. I think.
Absolutely,
to create-
this is my.
create
I
awareness.
mean, all the people who are listening, they have learned a lot about child sexual abuse. As far as my learning is concerned, is something which is doable, something which is something which can be of use for society at a.
More.
So let's say.
In fact, you were asking about that by good intervention, some of things can be prevented. Even the psychological impact can also be reduced, or even the occurrence can now.
So let's try to end few messages. Munga, your message.
I think the message for everybody should be that you can expect these type of patients in your OPD anytime. If you have not seen this type of a patient, maybe because people are not aware of it. And once the law is there and it is mandatory for you to do it, I think one should be mentally prepared that anytime this type of patient comes, he has to do number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Not be afraid of it, but definitely be more intelligent on this issue. Right? Everybody should do.
My message is just to follow the IMA activities, because I think that will give an overview of what all is happening in future also in this.
Dr. Tandon, your message for today.
So the most important thing is that, as we have already listened, that the child sexual abuse is a reality. In the past, this was the thought that there is no such activities going on in the country. But after the POXO Act, which was enacted in 2012, now the reports are nearly 45,000 cases has been registered by police within 3 years. That means it shows that activity is going on. And I'm 100% sure the activity which has been reported across 45,000 only, it is much, much higher. So we have to accept the reality that child sexual abuse is a very common problem as the rape. And here I would like to mention 2 more things. The elopement is being considered nowadays as a child sexual abuse, because the elopement is taking place below the age of 18. And it is being misused as a child sexual abuse under POXO. This has come into the light by the courts that it is being used. So we have to be very cautious. We should not consider each and everything under the POXO.
Rajiv, your message for the day.
So my message is that as doctors, as physicians, we can be leaders of leading teams for preventing and responding to child sexual abuse. And I can say that for sure, because wherever doctors have done things with commitment, they have succeeded, and they can be leaders of a multidisciplinary team of social workers, psychologists, counselors, and I think I see a very good future for our children. Preventing child sexual abuse itself is extremely important. We have 440 million children.
Rajesh ji.
I think the important thing is that the children who are the victims of this, they are a major sufferer. They have a tremendous mental scar, and we need to help them out. See that what best we can do. We need to be ambassadors of them, and perhaps as each and every doctor have the responsibility and the role to help these children out. And perhaps if you come across any such person who is involved in such activity or perpetrated, it's our responsibility duty to to report and just see that these are children who are our future, and who are the asset of our country. We need to help them out.
So couple of things. Remember that I want to just add is that the child requires counseling, and all of us must also understand the principles of cognitive behavior therapy. The first CBT book was Bhagavad Gita, where Arjun was counseled by Lord Krishna, which carried 18 counseling sessions. In the first counseling session, Krishna only listens, that's the teacher, that's the psychiatrist, and Arjun speaks. In the second counseling session, it is the longest counseling session where Arjun gets confused, and from the 3rd to 17th counseling session, there is reasoning, there is fear, there is puchkarna, dharana, everything, and then in the 18th there is revision. If you really follow these principles of cognitive behavior therapy, there is no reason why child sexual abuse cannot be taken care of. And always remember, when Rajesh talked about PTSD, and PTSD treatment was again there in our methodology in terms of Batak and Chotha and Devi, like narration exposure therapy. Learn, go back to your psychiatrist, make them friends, and ask them to teach you CBT principles, ask them to teach you the principles of narration exposure therapy. Maybe this may add you to a little bit more to your income. Remember that child sexual psychology, every GP should learn the lessons, and they will get the art of extracting things, and also they will be able to get a confidence. And remember, if a child gets a confidence in you, he is going to be your permanent patient. That's all for today. Let's thank the UNICEF for helping us, continuing the project with us on child sexual abuse. And this is a part of our UNICEF program at Indian Medical Association. We thank Hansa, who is the IMA coordinator with UNICEF, Dr. Monga, who is our Dean of IMA CGP, Dr. Tandon, Dr. Rajiv Seth, and Rajesh Sagar. And let's thank our digital partner Librate and our webcast partner eMedical Access, and our this program every time is courtesy Presto, who is doing it with us. Me, Dr. K. Agarwal, say goodbye to you. We'll come back next week, some other session. And till that, goodbye. Thank you.